ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय भगवते वास ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायण नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी. So we are reading from chapter 10 of Canto 10, text 17. Please repeat after me. Daridra seva yujante sadhava samadarshina sadvishinoti tam tarsam tat arad vishuddhayati. Daridra seva yojayante sadhva samadarshina sadvishinoti tam tarsanam tat arad vishuddhayati. Sevaya yujante sadhva samadarshina. Sadvishinoti tam tarsam tat arada vishuddhati. Daridra seva yujante sadvishinoti tam tarsam tat arada vishuddhati. Daridraya, of a person who is poverty stricken, eva, indeed, yujante, may easily associate, sadhava, saintly person, samdarshina, although sadhus are equal to everyone, to the poor and the rich, the poor can take advantage of their association. Sadbi, by the association of such saintly persons. Shinoti, reduces. Tam, the original cause of material sufferings. Tarsam, the desire for material enjoyment. Tata, thereafter. Arata, very soon. Vishuddhyati, his material contamination is cleansed up. So the translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Saintly person may freely associate with those who are poverty stricken, but not with those who are rich. A poverty stricken man by association with saintly persons very soon become uninterested in material desires, and the dirty things within the core of his heart are cleansed away. Purport. It is said, Mahad Vichalam Naram Grahim Dita Chetasam. The only business of a saintly person or sannyasi, a person in the renounced order, is to preach Krishna consciousness. Sadhus, saintly person, want to preach to both the poor and the rich, but the poor take more advantage of the sadhus preaching than the rich do. A poor man receives sadhus very quickly, offers them obeisances, and tries to take the advantage of their presence, whereas a rich man keeps a big greyhound dog at his door so that no one can enter his house. He posts a sign saying, beware of the dog, and avoids the association of saintly person, whereas a poor man keeps his door open for them and thus benefit by their association more than a rich man does. Because Narad Muni in his previous life was a poverty-stricken son of the maidservant, he got the association of saintly persons and later became the exalted Narad Muni. This was his actual experience. Therefore, he is now comparing the position of a poor man with that of a rich man. Satam prasangam mama vitrya samavido bhavanti hit Krishna rasayana katah tad josanad asva apavarga vartmani sraddharatir bhaktir anukramesyati. This is Bhagavatam, Canto 3. If one gets the advantage of association with saintly persons, by their instruction one becomes more and more purified of material desires. Krishna bahirmukha haya bhoga vanchakare nikhatastat mayatara japati dhare. Material life means that one forget Krishna and then one increase in one's desire for sense gratification. But if one receives the advantage of instruction from saintly person and forgets the importance of material desire, one is automatically purified. Cheto darpan marjanam bhava mahadvagni nirvapanam. Unless the core of a materialistic person's heart is purified, he cannot get rid of the pangs of bhava mahadvagni, the blazing fire of material existence. So throughout this chapter and the previous chapter, there are three things that Krishna is teaching us, or is telling us. The first thing, as we discussed in the previous chapter, is basically he wants to increase the fame of Mother Yashoda. The second thing, he just wants to tell us that the bhakti, the supremacy of bhakti over the other process of devotional service. So basically the Jnana Yoga and the Karma Yoga. So he's saying the bhakti is supreme. And the third thing here in this chapter, he is telling us that how he has basically validated the instruction of the instruction of his dear devotees Narad Muni. So Narad Muni has cursed these Nal, Kuvera and Manigriva, and basically Krishna is reciprocating to that curse by delivering them. So basically he is teaching us these three things from these two chapters. Now, Narad Muni here is telling two things. First, he is giving the importance of sadhu sangha. It's very important that we associate with sadhus. Okay, so it is said that we should take the dust of the lotus feet of the sadhus. That doesn't mean you take a dust and put your hand and then you are liberated. That doesn't work this way. That means there is a process that involved with that. Okay, so what is the process? These sadhus are basically these saffron clothes sadhus, wearing these saffron clothes. These are like particles of the lotus feet of They are decorating the lotus feet of Krishna. Okay. So basically the instructions they are receiving from Krishna, they are absorbing within their heart. And so what we do, what's our role is that then we should hear those instructions from these sadhus that they have absorbed directly from that parampara system. So that's the first thing we have to do. So that's the process, you know. The second thing that we have to do is basically serve them, you know. We have to do the service. So sometimes, you know, the sadhus give the instructions, but we don't understand because there are so many distractions, so many things are going on, so we don't understand that. So in that case, you do the service first. And then doing that service, the humility will come, or the mood will come, then the mood of hearing will grow. Then you can hear. So that's exactly what Narad Muni is explaining that he did. You know, he was a little boy and then he served those sadhus who came during those 4 months. And then serving them, his interest for hearing started. Then he heard them. After hearing them, then he became an Narad Muni. So he's just telling through his example. So it's very important that we hear from these sadhus because they cut down the knot of that false ego. Because this Maya is everywhere to trap us, and then the false ego is there to victimize us. So how you do that? You basically associate with those sadhus. Sometimes we think that, you know, oh, we chanted 16 rounds, we did this service, and then we are so great. You know? And other person is not chanting, he's not sleeping. You know, we always comment like this. So basically that is signs that the false ego is coming towards us. Somebody thinks that, you know, I am senior devotee, somebody honor me. So in that case, you know, there's a sign that the false ego is attacking us. So devotee should be like a honeybee. You know, honeybee, what the honeybee do? They always go from one place to one flower to other flower to get the nectar. So devotees, the honeybee means they always try to find good qualities in others and relish that nectar. It should not be like a fly. You know, fly is always, you know, fly here indicates means you always try to find fault, which is not good. No, it doesn't matter whatever good things you give to the fly, it always go to the dirt. So devotees should decorate with those qualities, like a honeybee. So that's very important. So the process of bhakti is to humble us. So if you look at the Sanatana Goswami, when he met with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first time, he falls like a stick. He was Brahmana, he was very learned, it's a wealth. But then he stand up and put a straw in his mouth and said that I don't know anything. I'm just suffering from the threefold of these miseries. Please give me the instruction, give me your mercy. Tell us. So that should be the mode. It doesn't matter whatever the knowledge we have. Otherwise, you know, the false ego always victimizes. It's always there. So that's what Narad Muni is basically then here. He put these two sons of Kuberas. So he cursed them to become a trees. So to become a trees is basically to humble them. Because through humility, that's what the process of bhakti yoga starts. So it's to humble them. But at the same time, he also told them, you will remember, you know, because they were so proud of their wealth, and then proud of their wealth, you know. So what happened when you are proud, you know, madness happens. So they are basically creating sins, you know. There are various types of sinful activities that they carried out, you know, by taking a naked, bathing in the Ganga is basically a sin. And then basically they are disrespecting, or they are ignoring the sadhu, the Narad Muni, when he was coming to that area. So they were just offending Vaishnava. So there are, as in the 5th chapter, in the beginning of the 5th canto, the first chapter, Bhagavatam, it's mentioned there are two types of offenses one can make. One is obviously the Vaishnava aparad. The Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur explained that these two aparad, one is Vaishnava aparad, so basically you're offending a Vaishnava just like a mad elephant and just destroys the garden. And then that's one of the impediment to the process of spiritual life. The second, he talks about that Krishna also create impediments, or his devotees create impediments, the obstacles to the process of it. They create those obstacles. So just they can correct it. But bhakti, as we know, is eternal, that cannot be washed away. It's eternal. So basically, for some period of time, they create those obstacles so that he will recover. So that's, for example, you take an example of these two gatekeepers, Jay and Vijay, So he asked them to take 3 different births as a powerful demons. So basically so here the Narad Muni doing the same thing. Because he see that they have a lot of pride in what the activities they are doing. They feel is so proud of their wealth, of their Janam, Aishwarya. So that's what he cursed them to become a tree. And also at the same time, that you will remember that. This will humble them. So while in the form of the tree, they felt like that. They feel so much pain because they still remember. That will humble. So if you see a caterpillar, so the caterpillar, sometimes he just trapped in a cocoon, and then he feels a lot of pain in that cocoon. Okay. But what it comes after suffering so much pain is he become butterfly, because he get wings. When he is in that pain, he get wings and is a butterfly. He can go anywhere in the sky. He can take the nectar. So this is the same kind of suffering for these two sons in the form of the tree. So there was usually during the German, during the Hitler time, there was a person who was asking an old man that, you are drawing these butterflies after you are going so much suffering. So usually Hitler's what he did, he put those Jews in those concentration camps. So basically put them in those bins and then start heating, concentration, these tanks, and heating from the bottom, and then basically how they die, the suffering. So you see that then you are going through so much sufferings, but why you are drawing these butterflies? And everybody is drawing different butterflies, different colors. So they said that there is a hope. Once we are like a cocoon here, like a caterpillar in this, and then once we just will get liberated like a butterfly, because then we will connect with God. We just like a butterfly. We are independent. The suffering is there, so there is always some hope. So the pride is very dangerous. Then Narad Muni is telling here for the last 3-4 verses, he's telling us, why it's important that the poor man only can take the process of bhakti. Means he is more favorable to take the process of bhakti. It doesn't mean rich people cannot take it, but the poor, the state of the poority is basically where you can take this process. So he mentioned here a few times, because as a Kunti Maharani also mentioned in her prayer, Janma Aishwarya Shrutas Sadbhir. When you take a high birth, Janma means high birth, Aishwarya means opulence, Shruta means knowledge, and Sadbhir is beauty. They usually don't take the process of bhakti because they are proud of what they have. So if you look at the 3 things that rich people usually do, they always hanker for the wealth. How to acquire the wealth by different ways, they hanker for that. So they always hanker for that. And then what happened when they get it, they try to protect it, they try to accumulate it. So this in the 10th canto, in the 51st chapter, there's a story of Muchkan. Muchkan was a king, great king, and he helped demigods to win. So this Muchkan is basically very famous for the pastimes of Krishna as a ranchor. So he is explaining like this: the hankering of these materialistic people or the rich people for the wealth is just like a snake with this tongue coming out, those fangs, they are coming out and trying to get a prey, try to always look for the prey. He always has his fangs coming out and look for the prey. And then he's explaining further that the rabbit or this mouse, he puts so much efforts in digging those holes, so as his home. But when the mouse goes, when the snake goes, what he do? He just grab him. He just swallow that mouse. So this is just like this. What's the point of accumulating so much wealth? Because at the time of death, everything is taken away. So that's what he's saying. It's just like a snake, always hanker for food. Even like Indra, Lord Indra, when he was enjoying, dancing with apsaras in the heavenly planets, then his guru Brihaspati came. But he was so absorbed in dancing that he forgot that his spiritual master is standing there. So he was basically offending, ignoring. Once you become pride, then you just ignore others. So then he felt the Guru left, the heavenly kingdom. He left his place. That's what, demons defeated Indra. So he was feeling that, because of this, my pride, my enjoyment, all those things, my spiritual master left me. So that's what, in that context, Narad Muni is saying here, again and again for the last 3-4 verses, that these poor people, they have two things, they don't have any arrogancy. They are not arrogant. Because they have nothing to do with arrogant. What's the point, because they have nothing. Second, they have little shraddha, little faith. So they can easily take the devotion service or easily at least make an effort towards the devotion service when they associate with the sadhu, because they can easily receive sadhus. As Srila Prabhupada mentioned in his purport, the rich people who are arrogant, they have a dog in their house, so nobody can enter, beware of dog. They don't want to basically invite sadhus at their home because of the arrogancy, because of the pride. So this is very important lessons to learn. That doesn't mean somebody is rich then he cannot take a devotional service. But the concept is that he is telling us that people with doesn't have anything or has in poverty, the chances of getting connected with the devotional service or performing devotional service is more favorable for them as compared to other rich people, which is not favorable to them. So one of the important things that we can learn from this pastimes of this, like Narad Muni cursing these two sons of Kubera, the pride, Pride just comes before the fall. So this is very important that we have to learn. Before the fall down happens, the pride comes. So with pride, so many things comes, The attachment comes. With the attachment, there is a fear. Because as you relate more with the body, mind, and the senses, the criteria of enjoyment get broadened and broadened. You start doing everything. Fear will come, attachment will come, sense gratification will come. Everything is just like a churning in that category. So the fear is always there. That what happens if I lose something? So fear is always there. So when the Kansa was always in fear, he keeps sending those Rakshasas, those big demons like Agasura. He sent them. He always feared that Krishna, this little boy, will kill me because this was the Akasvani. So if you look at those Gopas and Gopis, they enter into the mouth of Agasura without any fear. because they believe that they have the firm faith that Krishna will protect us. Can we do that? Can we go into the mouth of a snake? No. Do we have that faith? So we have to think about that. And the Kansa has that fear. So for example, people are sitting in the class, hearing class, there is always fear, whether I get prasadam or not. There is always a fear. And when you go there to the prasadam line, close to the prasadam, the fear increases, that if it is there or not. Fear is always everywhere, because if you try to move away from Krishna, the fear is always there. That's why you take a shelter of Krishna. So when the pride becomes so high, what happens next? Then the enjoyment comes. So there was a beautiful, how there was a devotee, there's a process how he fell down. There was a king called Puranjana, in the 4th canto mentioned. So he was completely absorbed in the sense gratification. He has beautiful wives, he just enjoy with them all the time. But he was so absorbed in that, even after some point of time, he was not feeling satisfied. So he wanted to just go out for hunting. So when the pride is at its peak, then what happened? Enjoyment comes. He wants to hurt those different animals, want to kill those animals. Those are basically the different sense objects. He wants to try to kill them. So he went out. The bow and the arrow represent his attachment and the hurting mentality of him. So he went out, he started killing those animals. So what happened after a certain period of time? What happened? What the next step? The next step is fatigue will happen. He's so tired. That's what. First the pride it speaks, then the enjoyment, then the fatigue. So when the fatigue happened, then the king came back. And then he relaxes by taking a bath. He bathed and he decorated himself with the ornaments. And then he started realizing that what I'm doing. So basically he started taking the shelter of sadhus. So when he taking the shelter of the sadhus, then what happened? The process of sadhana bhakti started within him. So he was cultivating the process of sadhana bhakti, and then slowly and slowly he overcome the mode of ignorance and passion. After that, what happened? The mode of goodness, So when somebody is in the mode of goodness for a long period of time, so what happened, One feels satisfied and happy. There's happiness and satisfaction. But when you are feeling satisfied and happy after some period of time, then again you start thinking, he started again thinking that I have overcome all those difficulties. I have attained sadhana bhakti. Then the pride comes. So in the mode of goodness, you are satisfied, you have knowledge and satisfaction. But if you are feeling proud of that, then basically you again go back into the mode of passion. So same thing happened to King Puranjana. He was again become passionate. He said, I have overcome this difficulty, I am in the mode of goodness. Then that prideness, basically when the pride comes, when the false ego always victimizes, look for these things, because Maya is always traps in a different form. So he again started those activities. His further fall down. Then next birth he took the form of a woman, and then he associated with the sadhu, and then basically he got liberated. So that's what, after pride is enjoyment, then after enjoyment is fatigue, and then basically you take a step, he took us that shelter of sadhus, but again the pride has come. So one who is pride, and one who realizes that this is not good and try to take a shelter of sadhus and sadhana bhaktis, the most important thing is how you maintain that. That's the most important. So how you maintain that? The first thing you have to do is basically, you should be aware of that. When you are aware, of the activities that you do, so then you can maintain that state. So awareness is very important. Awareness means, we have got so much mercy that we render some service, because so much pious activities we have done, or with the association of sadhus, that we get a chance to serve the devotees, serve the deities. So we should always think about that. Awareness has to be there. When Arjuna was fighting the battle, Krishna was his chariot driver. Okay, so Arjuna was a very expert warrior. He was shooting the arrows. He can shoot arrows with both of his hands, and he was killing those soldiers. And then what happened at the end? Then Krishna used to ask Arjuna used to ask Krishna, to go from this place. So he usually give the instruction to Krishna, chariot driver, go here, go here. When there was after the end of Mahabharata, Krishna, asked Arjuna, you get out of the chariot first. Then after you, then I will get out. So what happened when he get out of the chariot? The chariot just blown into pieces. Then Arjuna started realizing, it's not me doing these activities. Because I was under the shelter of this Krishna, that's what I was protected. So that is the awareness one should do. That, I don't have any capacity to do anything, but as long as I am under the shelter, I can do anything. This is Arjuna showing us a nice example. When he coming back from Dwarka, and after Krishna left, he fought with the ordinary cowherd boys, they defeated him. And he was then further came down to Hastinapur telling Yudhishthira, I was defeated. I was thinking, I am great warrior, I can shoot arrows, I have got so much power from demigods, so much weapons from demigods. But that's his realization. Without the protection, I cannot do anything. So the first thing you have to do is aware of our surroundings. Otherwise we are not aware, then the pride will again come. And the second thing we can do is basically prayer. You start praying to Krishna that, I have nothing. I am full of prideness, I have nothing. You just protect me. So then Krishna glances when you offer sincere prayers, with a humble mood, as a Swarup and Sanatan Goswami fell at the feet of the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and said, we don't know anything. You instruct us in the process of devotional service. Even though they are knowledgeable, but they are in that, surrendered in that humble mood. So offered prayers. So as you offer prayer to the deities will glance you. So what happened when the deities glances you, then they create the desires. The desires are basically the spiritual desires. And also they will maintain that. So that's very important. So you always offer prayers. So offering prayers, it will avoid you to fall down. So it's very important. That's what, after getting cursed, these two sons, they fell at the feet of the Narad Muni and offered prayers, asked for forgiveness. And the third thing you have to do is basically, you perform sincerely your service. The third thing that you can do. So the service, so attitude of service has to be there. And then Srila Prabhupada, there was a disciple called Pundarika Das. He was introduced to Srila Prabhupada by Dhananjay. And then Dhananjay told Srila Prabhupada that, this devotee know all the verses of Bhagavad Gita verbally. You don't need to say. Then Srila Prabhupada immediately told to Dhananjay that, involve him in the devotional service, in the service. Because just remembering this is not going to help. When he do the service, he will get the self-realization. Whatever he has learned, he will realize that only through the process of service. So somebody is not like illiterate. He said if somebody is illiterate, doesn't have any Vedic knowledge, that's fine. When he do the service mood, ultimately he get that knowledge. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he was walking in a garden, he saw that a gardener, devotee gardener, and he was just doing his activities sincerely, day after day. He said that, he asked few things, what's the Jiva, what's the Ishvara. Then he was answering all those questions. And he was surprised. He asked him, you don't know how to read. But how I acquired this information? He said that I was hearing you. So when you are in the mood of that service, then what happened? The interest in hearing will start. And once you hear, then you will get absorbed, and then you can get that knowledge. It's not necessary that you need to be PhD in learning about these shastras. The mood of service has to be there. Then the fourth thing that comes is basically you have to surrender. You have to be independent. So surrender completely. Just thinking that the Supreme Personality of God has omniscient. He has everything. He is all opulent, absolute truth. I am nothing. I am insignificant. Just like as Swarup and Sanatan Goswami, how they fall down and with the teeth, with the straw in their teeth. That's the indication of a humility. So that surrender has to be there. So when you have these four things, that still if you are doing some devotional service, but once you are aware of these four things, the pride will not come. Otherwise the false ego is always there to victimize. The Maya is always there to trap. So this is very important principle that one should understand. Now when we are doing the services, there are also different elements involved in it. When you do the service, then the first thing that Brahma is instructing Kardama Muni, his son, Kardama Muni at the bank of Bindu river, is instructing him what should be the mood of a service. Because that's very important. Because that's where the process starts. Otherwise you will be always in the devotee syndrome, pure devotee syndrome. You know what the syndrome? The new devotee comes, he attends Mangal Arati, he take a little austerity, he do chanting 16 rounds, he do little prasadam, little austerity. That's called the pure devotee syndrome. After some time, this syndrome, he get too much attached, the false ego and the Maya attacks, and he just cannot handle that. It's a pure devotee syndrome. Because then you have to do these four things to overcome that. So the service attitude has to be very important. So he is instructing his son Kardama Muni that the first thing you have to do is basically you hear the instruction. What are the instructions that you get, you do your service accordingly. With a simplicity, no duplicity. That's the principle. Simplicity, no duplicity. That should be the mode. So that should be there. Sometimes, we think that, this service I don't like it and this is not for me, this is not for me, I like this one, this. You cannot do that. Whatever the instructions that you are getting from your senior devotees, you just do that service, carry out that service with the simplicity. That's what Krishna is looking into. You may have differences of opinion, but at least you follow the instructions. So when you follow the instructions, that means you are respecting the authorities or the seniors. Otherwise you disrespect. And when that happens, the pride again comes. That's what it happened to King Puranjana. The pride will again come. So the second thing that he is instructing is basically there should be no arguments. When somebody is giving instruction to do this service, there should be no argument. You should not argue. That's very important. And then the third thing that he's teaching or he's telling to Kardama Muni that there should not be any hesitation. Okay, so first you receive the instruction, then there should not be any arguments, and then there's no hesitation. Whatever service is given, just do it. Because through that the purification will happen. The interest for hearing, when you serve the devotees of Vasudeva, the interest in hearing will start. Through these leelas, that's what Krishna is teaching us. First thing you have to do is the hear. That only happens when you serve. So, Srila Prabhupada used to give the example of a chaste wife when she decorates herself in front of her husband when husband is there, but when the husband goes away, she don't decorate herself. She remains a simple life. But her consciousness is always fixed on her husband. It doesn't matter whether the husband is here or not. When the husband come back again, she always decorate herself. So you should not look at those externals. Externals may change, but the instructions, just follow those instructions. There may be differences. Externals may be changed, but you have to follow those three things. So these are called the favorable process for doing the service. There may be offensive process also, not favorable. So there's another example of this side is Sabari Muni. So when Sabari Muni was meditating under the water, he was meditating near the Bindu river, Kardama Muni. So the Sabari Muni was meditating under the water. That's more austere. Okay, so in the Vandavan. So there used to be a Kalia, snake there, serpent, and then there are other snakes. So there was a condition that, for Garuda, one day every snake will come and oblate herself, to Garuda. But Kalia was basically came in between and he is taking those offerings. And when the Garuda came to kill Kalia, he took the shelter of that lake where this Muni was meditating, because somehow the Garuda was not allowed to enter into that lake. So in the lake there was a lot of fishes there. So when the Garuda came, and Sabari Muni was to relish those fishes or to eat those fishes, then Sabari Muni said, "No, you cannot do that. They are here in this under my shelter. You cannot do that." So he was doing. So what he was doing here basically is aparad, often sadhu aparad, because Garuda spiritually he is way higher than Sabari Muni. So he was disrespecting. What he wants, he don't want him to do that. So sadhu ninda. Then second thing happens when you do that, then the affection will come. So this is the case we are talking about the other side. When you do the devotion service or when you do the service, the other side is basically not favorable. So affection, he got affected with those. Affection for fish happened to this. And when the affection will happen, then there is an attachment. So he was very much attached to those fishes. So basically, he was using his own intelligence to instruct Garuda. That's what the problem happened. When you get an instruction from a parampara system or from a devotee, senior devotee, you just follow those instructions. Don't use your intelligence to figure out how I can do it. And that's exactly what he is doing. He was using his own intelligence and he's creating or making those offenses against Garuda. So what was the result of that? You know the story of Sabri. So he was too much attached to those fishes, and whatever the activity the fishes were doing, like mating, then he got enchanted with that. So he suddenly come out, all his bhakti is gone, and he went to the king and asked that to marry his daughters. He was also so powerful, he created palaces for them. But that's the result when you do the other side, when you try to relent or try to don't follow the instruction and try to use your own intelligence. So these are two extreme examples. One is given to Kardama Muni, what are the process more favorable that you can cultivate the mood of service. And this is what you should not follow to cultivate the mood of service. So one of the important lessons one can learn even from a tree, so you can see in California there are redwood trees. Okay, these trees are pretty tall, 300, 400 feet high, and their diameter is, few tenths of a feet, so they are pretty tallest trees. So they are so tall, but the roots doesn't go deep. So those trees, basically the roots are on the surfaces, but what happened, they cross-linked. Other trees root coming, this tree's root coming, they cross-linked. That's what in the scientific way, there are different polymers. When you cross-link them, these polymers become so hard. The seeds, the plain seeds and all these carbon fibers these days, there's no metals, they're so strong. So these trees' roots cross-linked. And then what happened? That prevent them, or basically that helped them to overcome those high winds and tornadoes. They just stand straight there. They don't fall down. So similarly, the lessons we can learn from here, that when we do the devotion service, we cooperate with each other. That's what when the veins of the heart merge with the veins of the other devotee's heart, so you cross-link. And when you do the cooperation in such a way, you can progress in the devotion service. Cooperation should be in this way. You merge each other, just like these roots. So if you stay strong. If you cooperate like intentionally, then that doesn't help. The pride comes. You cross-link in such a way. So that's what this Krishna is teaching us through these pastimes. I mentioned several times, but again that you should hear about him, these pastimes. You develop the mood of the humility or determination. That has to be there. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, na janam na sundarim, na janam na sundarim. No, I don't need any wealth, I don't need any women. So to develop that mood of service, this humility or determination, then third thing, you have to develop the mood of this service. And then you tolerate, the fourth one. And the fifth one, he is teaching us, when you do all those things, then sambran will happen. You will always remember Krishna all the times. But you have to overcome these. You have to go through these steps. So that's what he is teaching us through these pastimes. And that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us, that bhakti is basically to humble us. That's what this Nalkubera were put in the body of trees, just to humble them. Because humility is basically the key to progress in the process of bhakti. And one should not be arrogant. That's what he said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you should be tolerant. Ravana did so many things, so much powerful. He chopped his head and offered to Lord Shiva. He got many boons. But Vibhishan Maharaj, just bent down in front of Lord Ram with humility, and he got that kingdom. Ravana didn't get anything. He was crushed to death. So one should always be humble. I will tell this story again. So Ramanacharya has one of his close disciples called Parashar. So ultimately he became the most principal disciple. But at the time, he was a little child. So there was a great Pandit. He was very known in Shastras. He challenged everybody. Nobody wanted to fight with him because he challenged everybody and defeats. So wherever he comes, all those scholars just hid somewhere. Take a shelter some places. So what happened? So he came, and then this little Parasar, he wanted to challenge him. So you look at this little boy, you still have a milk on the teeth, what you are going to challenge me. So he took finally, the battle happens, he took a handful of sand in his hand and said, tell me how many grains of sands are in the hand. So he was quite disturbed. When he got disturbed, then he started thinking, then finally he just gave up and he surrendered. He said that, I don't know anything. Then he said that, what's the point of getting this knowledge? If you don't have a respect for others, what's the point of this knowledge? Your knowledge is just like a handful of dirt. I just throw it away. There's no point of having this knowledge. So that's what Krishna is teaching us through, and the Narad Muni is teaching us through these verses, that association of sadhu is very important. And then he mentioned that with his own realization that one who is poor is more favorable for the devotional service because he is not arrogant, he has faith. And then the Nal Kubera and Manigiri is still feeling that humility after getting so much pain in the tree. So these lessons is telling us that how we follow the process of devotional service. So I will end here. If there is any discussion or any things I can take.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. What you're thinking as you give the nice presentation, if we tell people that the process of bhakti will help us become more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, no pride, devoid of all sense of all prestige, and be ready to offer respects to all others. It may not be very appealing for most of people, but it will be appealing for those sincere people who are developing faith in, Krishna and the process. Now, it becomes easier for us to be humble when we're dealing with someone who is greater than us or is in a much elevated position. So when we see, very advanced personalities, naturally we can fold our hands and bow, touch feet, and serve happily. We can also relate in such way with those who are junior or are less experienced than us. So we extend ourselves. So the relationship is pretty much smooth. And we also in the position of giving. Now, it's more difficult to show or to manifest those qualities with our peers. So naturally, I see someone more or less my equal, and to control or to avoid the false prestige or pride or ego. It gets involved very much. Humility, tolerance, pride, and false ego becomes very much shaken or agitated, mostly in that space, the relationship that we have with our peers. And those we have such a great time, such a great difficulty in working together. In general, I get together, I feel comfortable to do service with those who are likewise, like think like me. With those who are a little different, then, so then we have this tendency to have groupism like that. And it seems that is something part of the growing pains of becoming more Krishna consciousness, collectively and individually. How, I mean, you explained in your presentation, that was very nice, there's certain things that we have to do and be aware of pride. But even with all our sincere efforts, we still have such a hard time to work, you know, our differences, you know?
Towards peers, you know, it's a challenge.
So what do you think? What can you comment on?
The challenge is always there, but there is also a responsibility of the peers to show the juniors by their examples. Okay, so if for example, when Srila Prabhupada came here, he taught everybody how to cook and all those things by his examples. So this was Acharya, I showed my examples, that's what people can develop faith and that kind of a bond and relationship. So approaching peers is always pretty challenging, but the peers also own some responsibilities that, you know, what are the instructions they are giving, make sure that the juniors can follow it. But mostly, as you said, the juniors are always okay to work with their counterparts, you know. But with the peers there's always a challenge. But you know, sometimes the challenges are there, but if you feel very uncomfortable, I think that my understanding is that you can just relate to that peers, that this is a difficulty or this is a difficult situation I am following or I am just encountering. Please help me out how I can overcome it. Or you can talk to a certain person who face similar challenges, who is friendly with you, and then how he overcome those issues with the peers. So through that learning process, you can apply and then just relate to the peers or do whatever which is good for your devotional service. But if something which is you are not comfortable, you can directly, you know, open up your discussion, open up your heart. Otherwise, you know, that relationship will not build, and then you will feel that you're isolated. He's asking me so many things to do that, and he's not doing anything, you know. The pride and all those things will come, you know, the offenses we can make. So the only thing is that we can learn what the other, my fellow devotee has learned, experienced similar things, and let me learn from him and I just follow it. Otherwise, you know, I feel that this is always a challenge, that sometimes miscommunications or delayed communications or hesitation, when hesitation is there, then you always start thinking about him within your heart, and you know, this creating offense, you know. That's basically some of the obstacles you will face in the path of bhakti. The challenge is there, but how you can overcome is basically, that means how deeper you are in the process. Otherwise, it's a pretty good question, but it's pretty challenging. That's what, you know, I have heard about that, you know, you look at your fellow colleagues and that how they've encountered these issues, how they can overcome it, learn from them, apply it. So as the peers give the instruction, if you don't follow it, or if you are not clear, you know, don't hesitate to ask. So this is the devotional service. Ultimately, everybody is serving Krishna. That's my understanding. Mukunda, you can go down.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you for your class. You made a lot of wonderful, profound points. My comment and question is one of the points you were making was related to a point I really appreciated and think is one of the most important points is you were mentioning that somebody came to Prabhupada, says, this person knows all 700 verses of the Gita. And Prabhupada says, well, it's no use without devotional service. Yeah. And one thing I keep in mind of those aspects, I usually, since I like to rhyme, you were making a distinction between information and transformation. And we see in politics all the time, politicians, they've went to the most profound schools, Harvard, Princeton, Yale. They have all the information, but then they're put in jail because no transformation. And so we see that what is the use of attending Harvard without humility, Princeton without principles, Yale without yielding, or Stanford without standards. Bhatya mama bijananti yavanyash chasmi tatvasa. Krishna says in 1855 the Gita, we should be less concerned about Maya Shakti, information, and more concerned about Krishna Bhakti, transformation, because only by transformation you will save your spiritual life. And actually in that purport, Prabhupada says that your education won't help you. So those are some points I think are the most important to keep in mind. But my question is related to the fact that you use the redwood trees examples of how we should stick together. And I really appreciate that example because just recently, yesterday I was reading briefly some verses from Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And since this verse mentions Narada Muni, in that section, Narada Muni is describing the first volume, verses 39 and 40. It says that Narada Muni, this verse is how we could glorify devotees. Who's the best devotee? And it is described that Narada Muni was incognito. And he wanted to disclose the glories of devotees. So there was one Brahmana who was performing some devotional service, and he was spying on this Brahmana. And then when he found out this Brahmana was very glorious in his devotional service, he was like, ha, I caught you doing devotional service. You're very glorious. And it says he's openly, publicly disclosed his glories. On the other hand, we see like people like Ramachandra Khan. He wanted to disclose, he spied on Haridas Thakur, he wanted to disclose his faults. And so we see that sometimes in our devotional life, we're less concerned about disclosing people's glories and more concerned about exposing their faults. And so my question is, what does it mean to be stick together? Because we see that Prahlad Maharaj and Hiranyakashipu or Devasa Muni and Ambarish, they disagree with each other, but Prahlad still stuck with Hiranyakashipu by praying for his well-being. And so sometimes there's going to be disagreements between devotees, like Subal said. But my understanding is that it's up to us to stick together by praying for others' well-being. If others don't pray for your well-being, then they're miserable. So what does it mean to really stick together? Does that mean to always agree with everyone, which I disagree with, but maybe you could explain that.
It depends on person to person. The principle of sticking together is basically when you are in association, try to get a nectar from the other devotees. Try to see the good qualities and cultivate those qualities, because if you try to focus on bad qualities, then you are not cultivating those good qualities. That lead to fall down definitely. So you look for those qualities, and in that association, when you are in a cooperative way, strengthen those things. When you find some good qualities, but when you cooperate, it will strengthen those qualities and you can progress in the path of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, there are so many differences, but don't look at those externals. Just look at those things which is helping me to progress in the path of devotional service.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Three things came to my mind. The adage, from pride comes cruelty. I can see that. From pride comes cruelty. And then another thing I remember in Prabhupada's books, he said when there's an accumulation of wealth, where there's a lot of wealth in the Western world, there will be the following, breaking of the four regular principles, because they have resources for, more intoxication, more gambling, more illicit sex, more meeting. So, and then another thing I remember, Prabhupada was traveling all around and stuff, and the devotee said to him, Prabhupada, we have enough money now where we could buy our own, like, Learjet or something, and you could travel around in that way. And then Prabhupada said, no, they will criticize. Better to go, travel like with the general people, because they're always trying to find fault. So, those three things came to mind. Thank you.
Even like with Srila Prabhupada, when during his time, there were only few volumes of Chaitanya Charitamrita he has written, or is published, and still 17 volumes, 15 to 17 volumes left. He asked his devotees, his disciples, during morning walk, you have 2 months to finish those volumes and get it published. 17 volumes, it's pretty big. So the devotees were basically little bit, reluctant to do that. They were like explaining the challenges, pros and cons. But he said that, you just do it. So devotee, don't hesitate. They said, okay, what Srila Prabhupada is telling us, just go and do it. They start, thinking, planning, and within the 2 months when he was in Mayapur, they just brought with them those 17 volumes. So that's a commitment, So that's what, when you don't hesitate, you directly take instruction, it comes with the empowerment. And then when you start hesitating and arguing, that's what the problem and challenge happen.
Another thing is, I think Srila Prabhupada said, the big temples and stuff, he said that we don't really need these, elaborate structures and all this stuff, but just to attract them. And when they're attracted, they can hopefully become more simple, But at first it seems like wealth attracts wealth, so you have to have a nice, I know one Indian devotee told me years ago, he says, what Indians like is clean bathrooms. So if you could do that, that's a big step. Because in India, I was there when I was in Mayapur many years ago. The bathroom facilities were really bad, But so I remember him saying that. Thank you.
Okay, I think we will end here. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.